What's up, felons? How are we doing? Today I'm here with a banger of a story. This is one I've been saving in the chamber for a while. I kind of didn't want to put this dude on blast, but this is a story about... I did time with a dude who kind of got turned out in a very soft and consensual type way. As always, check out my website, www.straightfelon.com. Like, subscribe, all that goofy stuff. But you know I like to just get right into the story. So let's go. Okay, so Ryan was, not unlike myself. He was a young white kid from the suburbs who found himself in prison for the first time. And he got befriended by DX, who was this older, long-time convict. It was his first time in prison, too. He just never got out. And I don't mean he was, way older, He was about 10 years older. I was about 23, and Ryan was my age, too. So he would have been in his early 30s. And I think he had been in there, since he was 18, 19 or something. I know he didn't kill anybody, but he did something pretty violent. And the two were a bit of an odd pair, And don't get me wrong, I had, black workout partners. My one workout partner, CX, he was in the cube with me. He was my best friend in the cube and inside the unit. And we walked the yard together. It wasn't like we were scared or anything. We just had separate lives, not even on some prison politics shit, just because we were, grown men. We didn't have to be with each other 24/7. So it was, I'm not making it a thing like that. But Ryan and DX eventually became attached at the hip. I mean, you didn't see one without the other. And people, you really notice this stuff in prison. I mean, there's fellow gang members that, kick it tough all day. But when it's two people paired up to the point where they're waiting on each other while the other shits and showers, or they're taking showers at the same time, that's the stuff these two would do. So what made me think of this story was another Michigan-based prison YouTuber named Petty Tupac. He tells MDOC stories much like me, but from the perspective of a black Muslim convict, which if you've listened to my stories, that's the biggest and most powerful group in MDOC. So he's got a lot of, high power stories. I tell a different side of prison life. He was a Mobite, which is Moorish Scientist of America, I believe. That's the biggest kind of Muslim group. Most people think it's Nation of Islam, but no, in Michigan we have the Mobites. So he did a video about the GBGs, the gay boy gangsters, whenever I talk about these guys, people tell me I'm making it up. They don't believe me. And I didn't believe about the gay boy gangsters. I thought it was just a meme, a joke in prison. But then I would meet people that swore they were on yards with him. So he talks about them. They call him the Rainbow Mafia. And I'm watching one of his videos, and lo and behold, he talks about DX and describes him to a T and his crime and everything. And immediately I remember that's the guy in this story that turns out young Ryan. And I clipped the video and showed some of my friends, and we were like, oh my God, it's got to be him. So anyways, back to the story, just a little backstory on it. And I remember this kind of turning out. It happened real slowly. And let me back up for a second. Ryan was like me. He was a white kid from a decent part of town. He was from Oakland County. I know he was a drug addict like me. And he actually had a pretty gangster type crime. He had an armed robbery or something. But unlike me, when Ryan went to prison, he left all that stuff at the door. He didn't he didn't even gamble or break any rules. Meanwhile, I had a relatively soft crime, but then I went in there on all the bullshit, racking up $1,000 drug debts and just all kinds of stupid shit. But Ryan didn't do that. He played Monopoly. He didn't even play spades. That was kind of too gangster of a thing for him. And MDOC is a soft place like that where you can do that and fly under the radar as long as you don't have no sex crime or nothing weird, and as long as you aren't getting sent huge amounts of money that make you a target. And both Ryan and DX, they were both in my unit in prison. And the people who you're in the unit with, you have a different relationship with. Because, yeah, you can go out on the yard. The prison I was at, the yard was open damn near all day. But even then, in the winter and then at night, you rack up a whole lot more hours with those people in your unit. You see how they live. You really see how they move. It's a different level. So I got to actually see this go on. And it's inevitable that all the young white guys in the unit, you all kind of get to know each other and hang out a little bit. And yeah, within that, there's subsets. Like the guys who are into drugs, they all have a closer, tight-knit circle. And the guys who are more into gambling and the guys who are gangbanging, they have their circle. And then kind of on the outskirts are the lames and the Christians and the people, the sex offenders who don't have horrible cases, like the Romeo and Juliet type cases. They all kind of hang together. And that's kind of who Ryan was with at first, because I remember he had been in prison before me. When I got there, Ryan was already there. But in the unit, you all kind of conversed together. And I remember Ryan was like my good friend Joe, who I confirmed this story with. He wasn't a lame. He didn't have a weird crime or anything. But he had a line he would draw. He never, drank the wine or smoked the cigarette or smoked the weed or... I ain't gonna lie, Joe gambled. Joe's a gambler. But Ryan didn't do nothing, man. And you know me, I did not have that in me. I was into all the bullshit. And prison's actually worse because everything's done on credit, so you don't need the money to do anything. You can just get yourself into an infinite debt. It's horrible. And then DX hit the yard. And I remember when he came along, people who had done a lot of time in prison said, oh yeah, I was at this joint with him and he likes boys, or, I was here with him and, he had a boy. And you would hear that about guys in there. And like I said, I think he had some violent ass crime. He wasn't doing life because you can't do life in a level 1. But I do remember he worked his way down from the top security level to the bottom. So you do 5 years or so in each one. So I think he was 10 years into a 15-year sentence. And he wasn't a huge guy. He was about 6 foot and very lean, muscular, but not huge. And he had a lot of prison tattoos. And I remember a lot of them I could tell even back then, they were gang tattoos. So the fact, that's a no-go when you're in a gang. Not at all. Don't get me wrong, MDOC isn't super hardcore about their politics, but gangs are gangs. And I remember in that Petty Tupac video, they actually mentioned he used to be part of some organization. But his appearance and demeanor did not match his look at all. He was very polite and not upbeat in an annoying Ned Flanders type way, but just always on a positive note, always had a smile, cracking jokes, had silly little sayings. Sometimes you'll meet a person who just says stuff like, oh, if you're going to walk on ice, you might as well dance. They always got little sayings like that. This was him. He had a marvelous persona, if you will. But I'll tell you, and this isn't just, hindsight is 2020. I could tell there was something off about him. And it wasn't, don't get me wrong, I'm trying to describe him. He wasn't a used car salesman type guy. No, it was more an American Psycho type thing where, the guy who played American Psycho said that performance was based off of an interview he saw with Tom Cruise, where it's this guy with this, kind of magnificent facade he's putting on, but behind the eyes, there's nothing. And that's just kind of what I saw. It wasn't that deep, you know what I mean? But there was just something was off. You could tell his soul didn't match up with that exterior. So I never really engaged with him on a hardcore one-on-one level, and he never really tried to engage with me like that. And it just happened really kind of slowly. Like I said, Ryan used to kick it with all of us other white guys, and then eventually there was just a point where you never saw him without DX. And like I said before, this is not a tough prison, and it's a soft prison within a soft prison system. You definitely did not need a protector. I don't think Ryan was any tougher. I don't think I was any tougher than Ryan, and I definitely didn't need a protector, and I got into all kinds of bullshit, And when it first happened and we really noticed it, yeah, of course we would joke about it and stuff, but I don't remember anybody ever calling him out or asking about it, what was happening. Are you just gay and you like this? Because he had a girlfriend on the outside. I do remember many times, though, where they would walk into a conversation us guys were having, and it would be awkward. Somebody would make a joke about, yeah, prison bitch or something, and forget that they were there, and then kind of ooh, oh, damn. A lot of stuff like that. And just the social dynamic and those two had in public was You definitely felt like they were hiding something, and I couldn't describe. It was like Ryan was his little buddy. Would be first of all, he would use those words. That's my little buddy. He would say, and goddamn, was it accurate? I just what a I don't know. Sometimes words just fit. But what was even weirder was the introduction of a third wheel. There was this other white kid that eventually joined the harem. And I would say his name because I really didn't like this guy. Something about his jib just rubbed me the wrong way. And he was a sex offender, and he had a Romeo and Juliet sex case, and like all of them, he claimed that his case was, the pinnacle of, an understandable, non-judgeable sex case. They all do. Oh, I swear to God, she was 15 years and 365 days old, and I had just turned 18 at midnight, and it was only 1 a.m., and her dad hated me and called the cop. It's always something like that. And then you actually read the paperwork, and you find out, like, yeah, they're just a freaking weirdo. Maybe not a super predator, but a weirdo. And because those guys who do have the truly understandable cases, they're usually very quick to show you the paperwork and kind of concede to that. Yeah, yes, they do have. I have a sex case, and they kind of know their role. But this dude just had a condescending attitude about it. Like he was, like this dude was in there with like a attitude of, I can't believe I'm in here. I don't belong in here. I'm above this. Sitting in there with a sex crime. And God, he looked like a weird fucker too. He looked like that yellow bastard from Sin City, except very pale and white with like a super dorky number 3 buzz cut all the way across. I just didn't like this guy. And I remember one time I said something to him about his status as a sex offender. I didn't like cut into him hardcore, but I kind of made a joke. I ain't gonna lie. I kind of checked him because I didn't like him, and I figured I'd have the backup of the fellas on this, and I didn't notice that DX was there too. And man, I ain't gonna lie, as soon as that shit flew out of my mouth, he said, John Boy. He said my name and like kind of like nodded his head no. And I ain't gonna lie, I was scared of that fucker, You'd see you get in trouble messing with a guy's man in there, so so I shut up. But I remember, I ain't gonna lie, that made me hate that little chomo even more. And of course he was just even that much cockier now that he had a little protection. But I actually didn't believe they were really all engaged in a sexual relationship at the time. Just because I guess, I don't know, I'm naive. I mean, I know people have sex in prison, and I knew the DX dude, liked boys in prison. But I just I would swear I would have to know about it for sure, because being in the unit, I know you can sneak around and stuff, but I don't know. And I also thought that Ryan, who, by the way, when he got out, has been engaged to women, dates women. So I figured, he wouldn't want to risk doing that and getting caught and getting exposed or possible STDs. But then again, I guess, everybody already knew, or everybody at least already thought that. So I guess he didn't care all that much, I suppose, in hindsight. And I guess, back then I was naive, man. It was just would be hard for me. Obviously, I knew bisexual people are real, but it was just hard for me to believe that a dude like this, who was, not ruggedly heterosexual, but just not the type of dude. He wasn't the first guy I would have thought that would have went down that road. That's for sure. Maybe I wish I could show a picture of him. I don't. His name is Ryan, something like Ryan Smith. It's very, very common, and he's since discharged off parole, so you can't find him on Otis. But you'd just be surprised if you saw him, trust me. But I was like, I would say I was like 50-50 on thinking if they were actually in there fucking, because I obviously knew there was something going on with the protection. But then I hit up 2 people to fact check the story about, some of the parts and remember the exact names. And they both knew Ryan better than me. And they said, yeah, it was 100% he was doing it. And the other third kid, who was a sex offender, like they were kind of a stable for DX. And it wasn't really protection or anything like that. It was just, I did that video a couple weeks ago on Donnie the Prison Punk. And don't get me wrong, these guys it was nothing like that. And the stories in that video. But I guess they found some sort of what did I say? They were little buddies. They found a big puppa in there. It seemed like the one kid might have needed him a little bit. The sex offender needed him for protection. But I guess I remember that kid didn't really have any problems in the unit. And like I said, it wasn't a hardcore prison, but I would have figured a lame like that would have definitely had problems. But yeah, I guess Ryan, he just, I guess, you never know who's going to enjoy that role. A lot of people are surprised that I date trans women. What can I say? Anyways, I thank you for watching this long. Please check out my website, StraightFelon.com, StraightFelon on Twitter. Thank you.